Hello everyone and welcome back to Azam Shah Weekly. And in this video, we're going to learn about how we can add a new product. If you go back to the Platzi Fake Store API, not only you can get the products or get a single product, but you can also create a product. And in order to create a product, you need to send in the information, which is the title, the price, the description, the category ID, as well as the images or image in an array. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get started. If I'm on this particular product list screen, you can see that I don't really see much information. I mean, I see all the products, obviously, but I don't see any way to add a new product. So let's go ahead and add some sort of a button, some sort of interface that can allow us to add a particular product. For this, I'm going to go ahead and create a new SwiftUI view. I will call it Add Product Screen. Okay, so that will be my view. And let's go ahead and call it Add Product Screen so that we know that this is the view that we are talking about. Now, from the product screen, where you can see all the list of all the products, I want to launch Add Product Screen. Okay, so we're going to show it in the modal. So for the modal, I'm just going to go ahead and add a is presented, which will be Boolean, and initially we'll mark it to be false. And what we will like to do is we like to make sure that we can show that. Like, first of all, we need to create some sort of a toolbar. And in the toolbar, we will say toolbar item with a particular placement. The placement in this case will be trailing because we want to display it on the right-hand side. And it will be simply a button that will say add a product. So now we can see add a product right there. Great. When we click on it, we simply want to go ahead and say is presented equals to true. And because of that, we can go ahead and show a sheet based on the is presented. So we can say is presented, and the content that we're going to show will be the add product screen. Let's go ahead and see if it works. And there we go. We can definitely see the add product screen. Great. The add product screen doesn't really do anything right now. I mean, it's completely empty. There's nothing really going on, as you can see. So we need to make sure that the add product screen allows us to, well, add a product, right? So let's go ahead and define a couple of different things that we need from the add product screen. We definitely need the title, the price, the description. So those things can be just string and double values. There we go. We also need the selected category because if you look over here, you do need to pass in the category. You do need to pass in the category ID so that we know that this product belongs to which category. So somehow we will need to make sure that we are passing the category ID as well as the image URL. We should also have some sort of error message being displayed if there's something wrong. So we'll put it in an error message property. And now we can go ahead and start creating our form. So let's go ahead and create the form. I'm going to use the form view. And inside the form view, I'm going to go ahead and add the text field for the title. I can go ahead and add a text field for the price. You can see it's 0 right now. And the description, that is fine too. Next up, we can create a picker view so that users can pick the category. But the problem is that where are these categories going to come from? Well, they're going to come from the store model. So this means that we also need to get access to the store model, which we can do it using our environment object. And make sure that you inject the environment object. You can see it's already blowing up right now. It's basically telling me that, hey, you gotta inject the environment object. All right. So I can go ahead and inject the environment object, but what I also need to do is I need to provide some categories. All right. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and create this environment object with some hard-coded categories and then pass it down. So store model. There we go. Okay. So now you can see the store model.categories. We are setting it up. Let's go ahead and build it. And it is complaining right now. I guess we need to put a return over here. And still complaining about the categories. Categories is setter is inaccessible. All right. So basically what this is saying is, since our categories store model is set to private set, it is inaccessible. So I'm just going to set it to not even private. I'm just going to go ahead and set it to, just a public property, and same thing with the products. Okay, let's go back. And there we go. So now it's working fine. And let's go ahead and load this page up again. And now you can see that we have, well, a bunch of categories that are selected, which are clothes and electronics. Great. The other thing we need is the image URL. So let's go ahead and add that. Great. We also would be interested in adding some sort of a navigation title. Unfortunately, we don't have a navigation stack right now, but we can go ahead and add that at least. If we have a navigation stack, we can display all those things. This means that we can actually return this. Instead of add product screen, we can go ahead and wrap this with a navigation stack so that we can get the title easily. There we go. Okay. And what we want to do is we want to select the first category. Let's go ahead and see what's going on over here. Return is treated. There we go. I think return should be over here. Okay. So what we want to do is when the form is on appear, we want to select the first category. So I'm just going to go ahead and say on appear. And the selected category will become the store model dot categories dot first. So the first category is our selected category by default. Great. Okay, so now the question is, what about the validation? And what about the button to save? Those things we can go ahead and add in the toolbar. So let's go ahead and add a toolbar. And toolbar, we will have the content, which will be a toolbar button. The first toolbar button I'm going to add will be with the placement of leading. And this one will be to cancel. Maybe you decided you don't really want to add a particular category. So I'm just going to call the dismiss function. The dismiss function will be part of the environment. So not the environment object, but just the environment. So let's go ahead and add that. There we go. Okay. So now we can call that. And the other button that we want to add will be related to actually saving the category. So again, I'm going to add another toolbar button. This time it will be trailing. And the content will be button done. You can call it save if you want, that's fine. And this is where we will save it, which is right here. Now this button, which is done, will not be enabled unless the whole form is valid. So for that, we can go ahead and create a property over here, is form valid. And we can say this is a Boolean property. And now we can check for different things, right? We can check for if the title is empty. Well, if it's not empty, then it is valid. And if the selected category is not nil, then it is valid. And if the image URL is empty, it's not empty, then it is valid. And if the same thing with the description, obviously, with the description is not empty, then it is valid. And if the price is 0, well, then no, it's not valid. Okay. So this is it. This is our UI validation. I mean, you can go ahead and add other validation things you want to, but this is our very basic UI validation. And based on our validation result, if the form is valid or not, we can control that whether the done button is disabled or not. So if it is not valid, it will be disabled. You can see now it is disabled. If I'm going to go ahead and add over here, let's say clothes 100 and whatever the price I'm going to put, and then whatever the description I'm putting, still the button over here is not enabled because I still have a couple of different things to select, and the image. So some image URL. And now you can see that the button is enabled. This means that the form is now valid. Now you can see that the image URL that I'm putting over here is not really valid, but that is something that you can do yourself. You can add like a pattern matching using regex expression so that the image URL is a valid URL pattern. Okay. All right. So let's continue. Next thing what we want to do is I'm just going to double check it over here. If the form is valid, then call save product. So I'm just going to call save product over here. Now I don't really have a save product function, so I can go ahead and add this particular function. So let's go ahead and add that function save product. There we go. The first thing we need is the category and the image. So let's go ahead and get that. There we go. Now, the problem is that we do have the category and we only need the category ID. We have the image URL, but if we try to use our product class, it does not really have the category ID. So we cannot really decode it and send the product to be added. You know what I'm saying? So if I go back over here, you can see that all of these things are going to match correctly, but we don't have the category ID in our product structure. We don't, right over here. So one solution would be to simply go ahead and add a category ID over here, but I don't think that's a good solution because now we're just adding the category ID and now it's just getting a little bit weird because your product with a category ID will only be used when you're adding a particular product, and the product already has an instance of the category anyways. So we don't really need to add another category ID property. But in order to send a request and to save it, we do need the category ID. That's one of the requirements. So in those cases, what you can do is you can create a model which is exactly mapping to what the creating a product needs. So this means that I can go to my models and I can go ahead and create a brand new model and I can call it create product request. And this model will map exactly to all the different properties that are required to be used, to be created for our request. So all of these are there. Okay. So in order to do that, in order to submit the request, we first need to create a product request with these things. Let's go ahead and see if we can do that. So I'm going to go back to our code for our add product screen. Okay. And in the add product screen, we can probably create a create product request. There we go, which will be a create product request. And now we can pass in these different things. We can pass in the title, which is stored in the title. We can pass in the price, which is stored in the price. We can pass in the description. And what about the category ID? Well, in this case, which would be category.id. And in the image URL, well, in this case, we only have one image anyways, or we're only allowing the person to insert one image anyways, so we're just going to pass image URL. Okay. Next up will be to save this product. So we need to call store model create.saveProduct, which by the way does not exist, and we can go ahead and pass create_product_request. Now we can't really do that right now because we don't really have anything called saveProduct. So let's go back to our store model, and in our store model we will create a save request or save product. So save product, you're going to pass in some sort of a request, which will be create product request, and it will be async function. It can throw an exception. That's all fine. Next up, we need to make sure that we encode the create product request, which we can do by using JSON encoder.encode create product request, try, and we will get the data. Once we have the data, now we should be able to save a product. Let's go to our store HTTP client. This is the only function that we have, a generic load function that will allow us to save a product. In order to do that, we do need the URL for saving the product, which as you can see, we don't have. I mean, we have URL for all categories and products by category, but not for saving a product. So I'm just going to go ahead and say static var save product. This is when you're saving a product, which will be a URL. And now we can return the URL to saving a product. You can get the URL from right here. I mean, this is the same URL I'm using, this one. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back more. And in our store model, now we can try to save a product. We can call client.load a request or a resource. Resource we're going to create with a particular URL. The first thing we're going to get is get the URL from save product, the one that we just created. Headers. We don't really want to pass any headers. I think that can be a default thing. So, I mean, I can add default headers, or I guess it will be a sign. So how about we remove the headers and we say post, and we post the data. Okay. Now it cannot really infer that what kind of thing that we're trying to save. So I'm just going to go ahead and say product, which is product. Okay. And we need to call it with try await. Great. Once we create the product, or once the product has been created, we can say products.append, and we can append the product to our products array. Okay. Well, let's go back. And now we should hopefully be able to call that from our add product screen. So in our add product screen, we're trying to call the store model, but since that is an async function, we need to do a couple of different things over here. We need to make sure that we're calling it with task, and we are performing it inside over here and setting the error message to be whatever the error message you want to put, like unable to save product. You can move the error messages to some other place. We will do that later. There we go. And that hopefully will allow us to save the product. And right after saving the product, we also want to dismiss it. Okay. And that is pretty much it. Now we can at least try to run our application and see that if it saves the product, and after saving it, it should be able to append the product into our existing products so that we will be able to view it all. Let's go ahead and run the app. Okay. We may not be able to see the done button and the cancel button, so we may have to fix that. Let's go ahead and fix that first, because you can see that the add product screen is not really inside a navigation stack. If you don't want to use a navigation stack, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure that there is some way that you can press the done button or the cancel button. That's the main reason, just to get the navigation bar, that I am adding the navigation stack. It is a modal, so it doesn't really need a navigation stack per se, but I want to get that bar, the navigation bar on the top, and navigation stack allows me to do that. Let's go to the clothes. We can see all the clothes. Let's go to the add product. Okay, I can see the add product screen. And what about if I say clothes 101, price 101, description 101, clothes is fine. Now you can see all these other categories also popping up. And for the image, let's see if I can just grab the image from somewhere. There we go. And let's try to save it. Okay, so nothing's going on. This means that it is blowing up somewhere maybe, or did we not call the function? Okay, so maybe it's our fault. Let's go to the add product screen. No, it is calling that. So it is calling save product. It should call save product, which is all of this stuff. So definitely something is fishy is going on. Something is not right. So let's go ahead and find out what's going on. All right, so let's go ahead and check it out. What's going on in the client.load function, which is our generic function. And if you see over here, the problem is clear. We're not even doing anything with the post. I mean, that's kind of like a placeholder that we set and we forgot about it. So let's go ahead and update that. We're going to go ahead and get the data. And once we have the data, all we need to do is to make sure that the HTTP body is set to the data, or else all the product requests that you're trying to do is never going to be sent. The body is never going to be sent to the server. Let's go ahead and run this. And now we can try to add a product. Add a product. Let's call it new product 101. Price is 101. Description 101. Whatever. Clothes is fine. And then some sort of an image. Let's make sure that we have the image. And we'll say done. Okay, so it's added, I guess. And if we scroll down, there we go. We got our product added. So it goes and it adds it to the server, and we can see the product with the actual price and everything. Pretty cool, right? All right, so this concludes the video over here. Now the next part that we want to figure out is how we can go to the detail of the product, how we can show the images of the product on the detail screen, and also how to delete the product. So these are the things that we'll be covering in the future tutorials. If you like this tutorial and want to support my work, then the best way would be to check out my courses on Udemy. I have a lot of great courses on Udemy about SwiftUI, Reality Kit, MV Pattern, Core Data, Test Driven Development, Cookbook for SwiftUI, RX Swift, and many, many, many more. There's actually a deal going on right now. If you go to my website, azamsharp.com/deals, you can get any of my courses for the lowest possible price. So these are all of my courses, and you can get it for the lowest possible price. All right. Now, this is a Cyber Monday deal. So this means this will expire very quickly. So don't wait too long. And this link will be right there in the YouTube description. So definitely check it out. Thank you so much for your continuous support.